Thank you very much for joining us this evening, everybody. We are very excited to have Dave Newhouse talk about a very important hot topic regarding Oakland and move of teams in the past, and unfortunately one that is trying to work their way out. So hopefully that does not happen. I am wearing my A's hat in solidarity, even though I am a Giants fan, and I am not completely over 1989, but I'll get there. So just a few reminders. Again, please mute yourselves. There will be an opportunity to ask questions towards the end. I'm going to have Marlene facilitate this discussion with Dave. I have a few just announcements for our chapter, the Dusty Baker-Sacramento SABR chapter. First off, this Sunday, it's going to be Giants versus the A's in Oakland. One of our members, Tony Oliver, was able to purchase some tickets. So there will be a group there. If he's already distributed the tickets that he has, however, if you are interested in joining us on Sunday, we will be in section 203. So there's not too late to go ahead and get tickets and hang out with us. Sunday, section 203 for the Giants versus A's. We do have our next in-person meeting for Saturday, the 19th of August. We're going to have a chapter luncheon at Folsom Roundtable with Andy McHugh. Andy McHugh is going to talk about his new book, Stumbling Around the Bases, the American League's Mismanagement of the Expansion Era. He's also a prior recipient of SABR's prestigious Seymour Medal, and also their highest award, Bob David's Award. And then author of the book Mover and Shaker about Walter O'Malley about 6-7 years ago. Great book. The meeting after that will be Saturday, December 9th. I know that's quite a ways out, but I did want people to put that on their radar. Don't have a speaker lined up for that. Assuming my book comes out by the time it's supposed to, maybe I'll be one of the speakers. We'll see what happens there. But December 9th, mark your calendar for an in-person luncheon there. And then also, I am going to be working on making sure that the bylaws for our chapter are available for our next in-person luncheon on the 19th. As previously discussed in prior meetings, SABR is making a push to have chapters put together bylaws and elections for chapter leader positions. So there'll be a couple of other leader positions on that as well, just to kind of take an inventory of how different SABR chapters are coordinating things, which is totally understandable. But that will be available sometime before the meeting on the 19th. So check your email on that as well, and definitely make sure to provide some input on that. And then also, if you are interested in any chapter leadership position, I am definitely looking for a vice chair and then also a membership lead. And then obviously, if you want to try and bump me out as chair, you're welcome to attempt that as well. I would definitely love to put in a couple more years, but obviously this is a democracy. So if you do want to bump me out, you're free to do so. But I do want to pass it over to Marlene, who's going to be our facilitator for the night. She's going to provide a few more announcements, and then she'll introduce Dave and the topic of Goodbye Oakland.
Thanks, Zach. Well, Steve and I are going to ditto that about chapter business. We're working on putting bylaws and elections and a membership chair, finding a new membership chair. We're working on that. So we'll get that information out to you lefties as soon as we have more of it available. But again, I want to welcome everyone tonight. This is going to be a fascinating discussion, not just about the A's, but about the Warriors and the Raiders leaving Oakland as well. I was kind of conflicted. I didn't know what shirt to wear tonight, so I wore sell instead of stay, because as Steve told me, they've got to sell the team in order to stay in Oakland. I also want to remind you that the SABR and International Women's Baseball Center virtual Women in Baseball Conference will be held this year, September 29th, 30th, and October 1st. We were hoping to do something in person in Rockford, Illinois, but that's not happening. So it'll be a virtual conference again, which will allow so many more speakers and members and interested people to participate. For us lefties, I'm hoping still to do a Bay Area Vintage Baseball League game before the season's over, but I'm kind of running out of time. And I may be able to get one of the folks from the league to speak to us. I just have not put that together yet, but I'm working on that. Steve Treader is going to tell us about an upcoming meeting with Steve Geithner, right? Sorry.
It's actually Steve Gitcher.
Well, okay.
It's one of these IE names that's hard to pronounce. Steve Gitcher, who I'm not sure many of you know, but he's a longtime SABR guy and a former editor with the Sporting News. He was their archivist, and he has written just a marvelous book. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Baseball, the Turbulent Mid-Century Years, which covers basically the 20 years before 1950 and the 20 years after 1950, this segment of the mid-century, including things like the Kansas City A's moving to Oakland, and the construction of the Oakland Coliseum and all those kinds of very, very relevant events that happened during that period. So that we don't have the specific date yet, but it'll probably be sometime in October, and we'll get you the details of that.
Thank you. And thanks again for everyone who's joining us. I see some old friends and new friends and folks we haven't seen in a while. And I'm just so glad you're all here. And Dave is one of our old friends. Dave Newhouse has come to many SABR meetings and SABR days, talking about his work and the various books that he's worked on. But tonight he's joining us to speak about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Is his new book called Goodbye Oakland. And he's written this with Andy Dolich, who can't be with us tonight. But Goodbye Oakland looks at all the departure of the Warriors, the departure of the Raiders, and possibly the departure of the Oakland A's. And the book just takes a wonderful and very broad look across all different elements that play into this, the personalities, the politics, the economics of what's been going on in Oakland. So Dave, I'm gonna let you talk about the book, and then we'll open it up to questions at the end. I'm looking forward to a very interesting evening. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. And thanks Dave for being with us again.
Pleasure to be here, Marlene. Andy Dolich came to me with the idea about 4 years ago to write a book on Oakland sports situation, which is the most unique sports situation in the country because all three franchises have either left or are threatening to leave, and one franchise has left twice. That's never happened before in American professional sports. So it was like unleashing, how would I say, just a tiger, because I wasn't figuring on writing this book, but there was a lot of information that I had stored in my head since joining the Oakland Tribune in 1964. Vignettes that people have told me that were accurate, but were not subject to print at the time. And all of that was stored in my head. And then all of a sudden it just exploded. It all came out. But I spoke with Andy and I said, to do a comprehensive book, you've got to approach it from all angles. We must talk to the athletes. We must talk to executives, but also we must talk to economists. We have to get a legal perspective. We needed a racial perspective because of Oakland's unique personality. And so with all that in place, we went out and sought expert minds. And the most important thing is it turned out, and maybe I should just tell you now, the most important thing that went in the book from my perspective is when we went out to the Maritime Association and talked to a man named Mike Jacobs. And he told us if you build the Howard Terminal Ballpark on the estuary, now people who, if they've never been to Oakland, you could swim across the estuary if you're a moderate swimmer in 15 minutes. It's not that wide. And by building the Howard Terminal on the estuary, it would jut out into the water. Oakland has the 6th biggest port in the country, with business that stretches all the way to China, involving 84,000 jobs. It's in operation 24/7. And if you build the ballpark out into the estuary, you won't be able to turn the ships around to carry the commerce out, to bring it in, carry it out. And I thought, nobody's talking about that. Well, I assume Libby Schaff wouldn't be speaking about that because she had already lost 2 teams on her watch. I like Libby, and I thought she did a good job for Oakland. But to have a 3rd team leave on her watch, I think would be detrimental to her political aspirations beyond being a mayor. And so that was never brought out except in the book. So that from that perspective, we started writing. I did most of the writing on the book, and Andy is doing most of the marketing because that's what he is. He's a marketing genius. He's done it for the A's. He's done it for the Warriors. He did it for a short while for 49ers. And he was behind the promotional aspects of Billy Ball back in the Billy Martin days, which really kind of put the A's really back on the map. So it took about 4 years to do. It was a lot of work, but apparently it just came out in April, and it's doing well enough to where the publisher, Triumph Books, is going to print a paperback edition starting next year. And if I don't get too far ahead of myself, there is interest in Hollywood in one of the central figures in our book, which could only be Al Davis. So I don't want to speak out of turn on that because that's a few years down the road before anything comes out, fictional or non-fictional, about Al Davis. So I know I've blathered on, Marlene. If you want to take over right now, you're more than welcome.
Thanks. If you've got questions, you can either raise your hand or put them in the chat. And if Zach and Steve will keep an eye on the chat for me for questions. Thank you, Kirk. Yes, I agree, Sal. So you talked a little bit about the background of the book. A lot of it is pulled from your archives. How did you choose which people to interview and highlight in the book for each of the sports?
Well, we did in excess of 80 interviews.
Okay.
And we wanted to cover, yes, it's a sports book, but it's also a fans book. And so there's a chapter on the fans, some of them in costume, because Oakland had the most original fans in the country, because it was like Mardi Gras and a hallucinatory drug to go to a Raider game here. And so I found very strong compassion among the fans. Also, the politicians, former council people like Dick Speece and Ignacio de la Fuente they can add a historic view about Oakland in a sports situation. So we really wanted to cover all the bases. I think there's a lot of books that have been written about Oakland, and Oakland has also been represented on the cinematic screen, but a lot of it is mostly pointing out negative aspects of Oakland. I don't want to be too harsh, but everybody seems to approach Oakland with just a little bit of negativity. And I've lived in Oakland with my wife since 1964. We live in a district of Oakland where there's deer on our street and raccoons. And there was once a white owl sitting on my back deck. Oakland is a wonderful place. It has beautiful hills. It has a bejeweled lake, 2 Art Deco theaters, a nationally award-winning symphony, The hills are as lovely as you can find in the Bay Area. The weather's the best there is in the Bay Area in terms of, moderation, where you're not burning up or freezing. There's so many good points about Oakland, and we thought this was our chance maybe to present Oakland with an accurate paintbrush to depict what Oakland is really like. And if I can say, I think we've achieved that end.
Yes. Let me read some of the questions that have been asked so far. Susan asks that you mentioned talking to various groups. You also talked about you talked to fans and some of the community for the book, for all of the sports. Can you talk to any of the highlights of speaking to fans and community groups, not only about the A's, but about the Warriors and about the Raiders?
Well, I think what's being depicted, Marlene and others on this podcast, is that Oakland hasn't really supported its teams. And that's totally inaccurate. Even fighting against adverse ownership, all the way across the board, except for the Haas family. The Haas family is the only family I've seen in the 60 years that I've been here that has really embraced Oakland and tried to make Oakland look like, not an alien, but a participant in the production and the success of our athletic picture. So I just would like to let people know that, yes, the A's aren't drawing well now, but who would go out to support a team where the owner is trying mightily to get out of here? And during that process, he's raised ticket prices and parking prices, and there's no concession stands to go to. So now they've cut back. So Oakland has the worst baseball attendance in the market in the nation right now. But let's not forget, when the Haas family owned it, they drew 2.9 million one year. And Oakland has drawn over 2 million with the A's a number of years. And the Warriors, there was like 18 years where they made the playoffs just one time in the NBA, and they sold out like 400 consecutive times, even though they didn't have a great team. They had personalities, but they didn't have a great team. And let's look at the Raiders. Of course, the Raiders, that's a fandom unlike anything you'll find anywhere in America. The passion and the craziness is just unparalleled. So they moved the team to Los Angeles thinking that's panacea. Well, panacea has a lot of holes in it. And so Davis brought the franchise back. They started selling out again. And then they leave again. The Davises, as I describe in the book, the father and son, are like Benedict Arnold and Benedict Arnold Jr., the most disloyal, disrespectful people I could ever imagine. And yet, will the A's go? Andy and I are on different sides on this. I think they're gone, because I think John Fisher is heartless, and he could have sold the team. Joe Lacob, the Warrior owner, took the Warriors back to San Francisco, where they failed in the 60s. And he was offered to buy the team. And Fisher, who's never given an interview in nearly 19 years as the owner of the A's, he's not even listening. So I can't imagine what's in that man's soul, if he has any soul. I mean, why would you heist the team out of Oakland when you could keep them here and let them thrive? From everything I've heard, he doesn't have the best business mind. That is, the Gap isn't doing well under his direction like it did under his father. So I'm sounding very, very negative. But what I'm trying to do, Marlene and other panel members, is to present an accurate picture of Oakland through the book that Andy and I wrote, that the general public doesn't often embrace.
Right. And I think those of us on this this Zoom tonight, we look at it from a much closer view, from a fan view. John asked, did you cover the move of the NHL California Seals to Cleveland back in the 70s? It's not in the book. You were writing for the Tribune then. Did you cover that?
It's in the book in,
Oh, is it?
in small form.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's been like 14 franchises that have come to Oakland and have left, including
Oh, great. Okay.
the Seals. But what happened with the Seals, well, maybe hockey isn't indigenous to Oakland. There are no ice skating ponds in Oakland. But we had the arena and it was adaptable. And I guess they did fair. That part is covered. John Porter was a beat writer covering the Seals for the Oakland Tribune, and he has a part in the book. Others were asked about it. But what happened was they didn't market very well. Bing Crosby was a part owner along with Mel Swig, the San Francisco businessman. And they didn't put a lot of money into it. And then Charles O. Finley bought the Seals. And of course, he wanted white skates and green uniforms. And he was so detrimental to any team. I mean, he built the A's into a winner. And then because the public, this is my viewpoint, the public didn't like him. He was in the news all the time, more than his players. And he was so negative that the Finley-owned A's only drew 1 million 1 year, and barely. Might have been 1,000,001 fan. I don't know. There weren't many more over the million mark.
Mm-hmm.
So the Seals, I guess, died a relatively quick death in Oakland, and then they moved to Cleveland, and then they died altogether.
Thank you. Hank is asking about, did you speak to the owners of any of the other teams for any of these sports?
Andy took care of most of that. We didn't do. He did some interviews with Roy Eisenhart and Wally Haas, who were head of the A's, because Andy worked with them. But no, I didn't reach out to I felt that they would always present a negative story. It's a journalist should try to see both sides of an argument or a debate or a transaction. But I felt if I could let everybody else talk about the ownership, from politicians and economists and fans and stuff, I felt we would get an accurate description about how the general public felt about the ownership. If I write it, it looks like in somebody's eyes, I would be jaded. I'd be anti. And so for the most part, we let the public discuss the ownerships of the teams.
Thank you. And maybe we can come back to owners later. Paul is asking about when Hoffman and Schott were selling to Wolf and Fisher, other bids came in. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was about Dave Stewart's group. And I really enjoyed and appreciated Dave's comments and your chapter that was about him. And as Paul says, as he understands it, Bud Selig selected them because he went to college with Wolf. Is the problem we face now due in part to that kind of old boys network, I guess? Paul, I hope I'm asking your question correctly, but I'm curious too. Why wasn't Stu's group considered, or the other local group considered?
It was another blow towards Oakland. One thing you have to realize about Oakland is it doesn't have a big voice nationally. When other franchises have moved from Cleveland or from Baltimore in the NFL made them whole. There have been opportunities to make Oakland whole, and not one sport has sought to be gracious enough to give Oakland a chance. So your question was directly about whom? I want to make sure.
So it was about why did they not sell to, they sold to
Dave Stewart.
Yeah, why didn't Dave's group get more consideration? Why did they sell to Wolf and Fisher because Lou Wolf went to college with Bud Selig?
That's a very good question. Dave Stewart's group was like Oakland born and bred because he had Damian Lillard in there. He had Ricky Henderson in there. He had a lot of great Oakland athletes who were part of his group. And they basically wouldn't listen to him. He had the capital. He did have the capital, but they listened to the other group that said they were going to bring the WNBA here, and that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So Stu is he bleeds Oakland. His chapter is so beautiful to read because he cares so deeply about Oakland, basically his hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really hurt by this. He started looking to put a franchise in Nashville. He just branched off. Oakland has been victimized, Marlene, in so many different ways. And this snubbing of Dave Stewart, it just seemed like a natural thing to do. But unfortunately for Oakland, natural things just don't seem to happen.
So one of the comments at the beginning, when you were talking about the different angles or elements that you were looking at was race. Is it a race issue that this would be that would have been the first Black ownership group? Is that correct? Maybe that's putting you on the spot to call it out. I don't know.
In terms of baseball,
mm-hmm.
It would be in baseball. I believe. I believe that. I don't know that for sure, but I believe that's
yeah. I
true. But it just didn't. It just didn't happen. It never seems to happen for Oakland. Oakland is so unappreciated on the national scope. A lot of the owners probably think Oakland's near Fresno or Redding. They don't even understand our geographics here.
True. I think there's a lot of negative press about Oakland out there, and in one of the chapters in your book, I think it's towards the end, the economists are saying major league owners, they like to take their buddies out to their ballparks and kind of show it off, and they don't think the owners, I guess, aren't inclined to think Oakland is a place to show off to their buddies.
Strategically, Oakland is the most well-placed stadium complex in the country. Let me elaborate. There's BART on one side, which was great thinking. Robert Newhouse, the father of the Coliseum, planned that place perfectly because BART was going to be built and run along one side. A railway was coming in on a second side. You had a freeway on a third side. You had two giant parking lots and an airport, Marlene, 5 minutes away. Also, that stadium is in the middle of 5 counties: Contra Costa to the north, Santa Clara to the east, San Mateo to the south, San Francisco and Marin to the west. Where is there a more perfectly placed stadium in the country? But because it's Oakland, it might have well have been placed in Juneau, Alaska.
Yeah.
Because people, they just don't see the truth about Oakland, how passionate the fans are, how well placed the stadium is, how the teams, even with a late start, 1960, have won 10 national championships, across football, basketball, baseball, not hockey. But all those pluses seem to play out as minuses in the minds of people who make these decisions that bury Oakland.
Any clue why? Or anybody on the call have any clue why?
Well, if I could just say something, we're always looked upon as San Francisco's ugly stepsister. That's
There's
just,
no there.
and look what's happened to San Francisco. The 49ers now play in Santa Clara, right? And the Giants almost left twice. They almost went to Canada and they almost went to Tampa, St. Pete. You know, they would have been, I believe, in Canada if some meat packer named Bud Herseth, for people that remember their history, sports history here, he stepped in at the last minute and partnered with, he was a cattle rancher, breeder in Arizona. Somehow they found him and he stepped in with Bob Lurie and kept the team here long enough to where Peter McGowan could put together the group that would really lift San Francisco to the ultimate, you know, a beautiful stadium, 3 world championships in 5 years. But look how close they came to going to Canada.
True.
Around.
Someone is mentioning, do you think the gambling scandal that came out today might put the brakes on a move to Las Vegas? I don't know anything about that. So
I haven't heard anything about a gambling scandal in Las Vegas is every day, right? There's always somebody thinking that it's dishonest after they've lost at the tables or the slot machine or something like that. I didn't know about a scandal, but you know, this market here is the 40th best in the the 6th best in the country, and Las Vegas is the 40th. But you know what? Well, Nevada is hot because you don't have to pay state income tax. There's a lot of perks there, and with that gambling industry, there's a lot of ready-made money that Oakland doesn't have, that Oakland can't give.
Yeah.
So a lot of things, Marlene, are stacked against Oakland, including the gambling industry of Nevada.
Do you think Las Vegas is having second thoughts now? I mean, nothing seems to be definite down there. Everything seems to keep changing, and the teachers are up in arms that they'll fund a stadium and not the schools. Do you think Las Vegas is having second thoughts?
Well, Nevada's got one of the worst educational systems in the country. It's really almost the rock bottom of among our states. But you know what? Nevada is hot right now. They just won the Stanley Cup. Imagine ice hockey in Las Vegas, and they just won the Stanley Cup. I think Mark Davis is going to ruin the franchise. But they sell out. You know, they have a beautiful stadium. There's selling out. He couldn't run a malt shop. You know, the whole time his father owned the team, he never had a position with the team because he's a screw up. He's always been a screw up. And now that he's running the team, he's fired 2 presidents within a year. A lot of people have left. You know, but when you move a franchise to a new site, you've probably got a 1 year, 2 year, you know, period of grace. So right now everything is okay. But when they get a full load of that guy in 2-3 years, if they don't start to win, you know, Nevada's a gambling state. They may not support them as well as he thinks they will.
Interesting. So Charles is asking, he's mentioning that when the Raiders came back and Al Davis built Mount Davis, which, you know, destroyed, you know, the beauty of that stadium, no sellouts and no TV revenue. I'm not sure about what the TV revenue comment is about, but what were your thoughts when they came back and built up the outfield?
Well, it was detrimental to the A's. The stadium, you know, the Coliseum and the arena is the last surviving stadium arena complex in the country. It was built during the 60s when that was a fad, you know, to build side-by-side stadiums and arenas. So it, you know, it was on its deathbed, you know, in terms of that concept. But I don't know what Oakland could have done if given a chance, because our finances are not great. I do understand that. But maybe in time, there could have been a stadium. I think the best place to build a baseball stadium would be right where you can't build it on the ocean. There's just no sites available. And Howard Terminal is a disaster. It would be a disaster. Thank God that hasn't happened. But the Coliseum is the best sites for all the reasons, Marlene, that I stated, in terms of access and the middle of the Bay Area. It's in smack dab in the middle of the Bay Area. Everything is right about Oakland, but it all seems to come out wrong.
Well, I think it's the neighborhood. And I don't think people think the neighborhood can change and be developed to be commercial and more attractive, if you will, to a wider group of people. It goes back to that perception. East Oakland it's deep ghetto. That's
I understand that perception, which is true in a lot of stadiums and ballparks around the country. It becomes, you don't always get, Father Flanagan. Well, maybe get some Father Flanagan's Boys Town type people that go to games, but you're not going to get the Mormon Tabernacle Choir buying season tickets. Sports crowds tend to be rough, because you look around and people drink too much and they buy or fill themselves up with other stimulants, and awful things happen in parking lots and in stadiums. I don't think Oakland is the only sporting site in America where there's problems.
They could drive change. I mean, we've seen it drive change.
Well, there never was a problem at the Warriors. It never was a problem with the A's. It was a problem with the Raiders. There was a guy who wore a Kansas City Chiefs jersey to a game, and he went to use one of the outside potties, and the Raider fans turned it over while he was inside. So, and the rule of thumb back then was at a Raider game, you never wanted to use the restroom after the third quarter, because by then people have imbibed so much that you might be in trouble, especially if the home team was behind. So, well, I think basically overall, Oakland has had tolerable fans. I believe.
I count myself as one. I've got lots of questions, and let me keep going here. Can you talk a bit about the territorial rights for the Giants to San Jose and how that all came about?
Oh, I probably ought to.
Did Walter Haas give them away?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah, he gave the rights to Santa Clara County to the Giants, because Mr. Haas was, he wasn't a dummy. He had one of the great business operations in the world, but he was a kind man. He's the most decent owner I've ever met in my life. Just when you talk to him, it was like just talking to your neighbor. He didn't flaunt his wealth. He didn't dress in a showy nature. He was a down-to-earth guy, and all of that permeated itself into his ownership of the team. Do you remember when they had a fireworks show at the Coliseum? This is when they used to pack the third deck, and because of the nature of the fireworks, they thought the fans would be better down on the field than in the stands. So they asked the fans to walk down to the field and sit on the field. And it was done without any animosity. There was no rancor. It was done very peacefully. And those type of memories aren't played up very often when it comes to Oakland.
Yeah.
And the true nature of Oakland is very rarely played up. And it's a shame what's happened to its sports image. I mean, I'm in my 80s now. When I came here, it was all just beginning to take shape. And the Raiders had lost 19 games, and then Al Davis came. Next thing you know, they're in a Super Bowl, and the A's win 3 straight World Series in the 70s. And there was that period in the mid 70s where both the A's, the Raiders, and the Warriors all won national championships. 74 or 75, right in there. So Oakland's had all these halcyon days. I know I'm sounding like I'm a cheerleader for Oakland. I'm really, that is my persona, Marlene. It really isn't. But I just think a true image needs to be presented of Oakland, and that's what Andy Dolich and I tried to do with this book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm with you on that, and I know a lot of people on this call are as well. Mike has reminded us that even the racetracks are closing in the Bay Area. Any thoughts or concerns about no Bay Meadows and no Golden Gate Fields?
Well, I grew up in Menlo Park, so I wasn't far from San Mateo and Bay Meadows, and it was always one. I mean, I'm not a track guy. I mean, a racetrack guy. I don't go and bet on horses and stuff like that. But I remember when the California Derby would be at Golden Gate Fields. It was a lovely thing to have, and women would wear bonnets just like they were at the Kentucky Derby, and just to see that Oakland's not, or the Bay Area is not going to have any horse racing is just another blow to its image. Nothing seems to stick forever here.
True. Thank you. Have you heard if any of the owners or executives had reaction to the proposal from Oakland's mayor that when she went to All-Star Weekend and made another proposal to Manfred? Have you heard any reactions from owners or executives?
No, I have not. Where she presented formula information to every owner.
Right, to everybody. That's right.
Yeah, at the meeting or in the league, however it happened. No, I haven't heard anything more. The only thing I can hope for is I would have expected the owners to give their 3/4 vote on the A's already, and it's being delayed. And I think, bless the fans that show up to A's games in their cell shirts, the same shirt, Marlene, you're wearing, and so it's been presented on the news. And so people can get an accurate picture and see what a harlequin owner Fisher is and how mistreated Oakland fans truly are. And I think the fans' outrage, if that would be the correct term, has delayed votes. People maybe are taking a second look now at the A's situation and saying, it's not Oakland, it's Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
Look what he's done. Have you seen what Matt Olson's doing in Atlanta? He leads the National League in home runs and RBIs. And he's a Gold Glove first baseman. It's in the All-Star game. Who's the third baseman? Matt Chapman is hitting better in Toronto than he ever did here. Oh my God. And Marcus Semien is another all-star here. Since he left, he's doing great things. So they've dismantled the team. It is horrifying.
Yeah.
And I know the players are trying to stay in games, but they strike out all the time. And the games are close because the pitching is not that bad. But then they keep at the trade deadline, they never add players. They trade players. The pitcher, I can't think of the guy's name, but he's a good left-hander, and he just is Sam Maul or something like that. But anyway,
yeah, he just left.
And last year they added Marte to the team in August. that guy was the closest thing to Ricky Henderson that I had seen in Oakland. He could steal bases. Yeah, they have a guy now that can steal bases, but he could hit. Yeah, he was a ball player. He was a ball player, and he was in the All-Star game this year. He's a star now. And I said, boy, that's a guy the fans would love, just like Ricky. You know, he could play defense too, and gone. He's just gone, you know, just like everybody else is gone. So who do you wrap your arms around if you're an Oakland A's fan? You know, a lot of these kids are just like minor leaguers. They're like AAA ball players trying to make it here. You know, I like Kemp. I like Tony Kemp. He's got a great personality. He can play any position. He plays well for him. I was dying for him when he couldn't get his batting average over 200. Now I think he's at 2.9 or 2.8 or something like that. He's a good ball player, but you can't have a bunch of guys in the lineup hitting 208 or 206, and that's what they have. They don't have a 300 hitter. I doubt that they have a 250 hitter, you know, that's played regularly.
Right.
And it's just a sad commentary. And
it's got to be hard for them. You know, it's got to be hard for the team, you know, and the managers and the coaches and everybody else.
Yeah. What about the manager and the coaches? I was just going to say that. How can Mark Kotsay be judged as a manager when he doesn't have a full deck? That's not fair. You know, he's not lucky like Dave Roberts in Los Angeles with the Dodgers. You know, and the Mets, they have so much money.
Different payrolls, right? Different payrolls. Money.
Got the lowest payroll and the lowest fan support.
Right. Sandy asks a question from an interesting angle here. Were there concerns from any of the owners that there weren't enough large corporations, I guess, on the Oakland side, to buy the luxury suites? These days, it seems to be all about public subsidies, luxury suites, and gambling as the TV deals get more iffy. I guess that's a whole nother topic is what's the future of baseball and media. But that's an interesting way to look at it. There's not enough support. There wouldn't be corporate support in Oakland.
It's a very accurate appraisal, but that wasn't the case when they were winning. You know, those skyboxes, I saw a lot of people filling up those skyboxes, but I mean, Marlene, why would we go to a restaurant and pay good money when we get C-ration food? I mean, it's just, you've got to be, you have to be honored. You have to feel that they're putting their best product out there. And, you know, if it's B-rated, C-rated, D-rated, whatever, E-rated, and they're raising ticket price and getting rid of players. There's no hope. There's no hope to win. And you have to look also at the manager, poor Mark Kotsay. How does he juggle? How does he juggle what he has and try to win when they're en route to losing 100? They might lose more than the 62 Mets, 120 games.
Yeah. Well, you know, I still get out there and I still have a good time when I get there. And I know other people on the call get out there too. So I look forward to seeing you at the ballpark. Back to some of the questions here. And sorry if I'm missing anything. Anne is asking what groups or person might have the money to keep the A's in the East Bay. I think there's groups out there, Anne, Dave, but I don't think Fisher's selling. And do you think there's what's behind all of that? Do you think?
Well, I think
the pump and dump thing.
It's possibility, but who knows? The previous questioner wanted to know why there isn't a lot of money in Oakland. There isn't a lot of money in Oakland. You know, we had Cornell Meyer, people like that. They're all gone now. The financial guys that stepped in there and tried to help. Oakland doesn't have a big corporate sponsorship anymore. I mean, we used to have Levi Strauss behind us when the Haas family owned it, but so that's another black mark against Oakland and another negative. So I don't know how Oakland crawls out of the hole that it hasn't necessarily dug for itself in terms of its sports teams, but because of the ownership and the idea of, when you think about where the Warriors play now, there's no parking around the Chase Center, and where you park, you have to walk a good distance. I'm told by people that go to those games to get to the arena. There's no parking around Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. You need a bus ride from the parking lot. It's barely a quarter mile away. So there's no fan advantages in San Francisco and in Las Vegas as it pertains to the teams that left Oakland to play there. My God, the Coliseum was great. You just went in there and you walked to it wasn't, everything about it was great. So what's happening in Las Vegas isn't better than what existed in Oakland, and neither is it in San Francisco for basketball. It was a better situation here.
So Hank Levy is on with us, and Hank was a county official. He's asking about, do you have opinions about what the county of Alameda could have done to keep the A's here? They wanted so badly to wash their hands of Coliseum ownership. He feels badly as a county elected official, even though he had nothing to do with the sale. Thank you, Hank.
I know Hank. Well, the city and the county have butted heads all through this process. It wasn't a happy meeting ground between the city and the county, and they were always divided amongst themselves. There's been a lot of negative forces against trying to keep teams in Oakland, and I don't think the city and the county have held themselves up well. I think the one thing, and people will disagree with me on this, but if De La Fuente would have been elected mayor, he tried 3 times and lost 3 times. And the sad part is when he lost to Ron Dellums, who was a great national politician, but was retired and was talked into, into running for mayor of Oakland. And he mailed it in. They said he came in late. He left to take naps and stuff like that, and he didn't want it. But if De La Fuente was, along with Lionel Wilson, way back were the only mayors or potential mayors of Oakland who really cared about sports. The others didn't. Maybe Gallo, maybe there's a couple of others, but there was nobody that had the fire and brimstone of De La Fuente, who would fight, who would have fought hard. He would have fought Davis. He would have tried to work with him. He back in the day, Lacob didn't own the team. It was back in the days of Finan and Fitzgerald, the Warriors. He would have fought hard to give Oakland the sports presence that it deserved, that it needed, and he never got that chance. His DNA didn't register with the Oakland voters, unfortunately. Unfortunately for Oakland's sports picture.
Yeah. A few more questions and comments. What about a ballpark where Golden Gate Fields is? Could that be feasible? That doesn't have the same access, but.
No, I don't think so.
And ownership wants to leave. Current ownership wants to leave.
Doesn't have the same logistics. The location of the Coliseum, I maintain, is perfect. Coliseum Arena is perfect in terms of being in the middle of 5 counties with BART there. BART doesn't go by Golden Gate Fields. There's no railway by Golden Gate Fields. It has a freeway, but no,
that's true.
That wouldn't work.
Nick's wondering if you think rising crime rates played a part in the owner's decision to leave.
No, I don't think so. There's Have you seen the rising crime rates in San Francisco and the homelessness?
Everywhere.
It's horrifying. The mayor, London Breed, she's having a hard time presenting a positive image because San Francisco has a lot of problems now. But so does Los Angeles, so does New York, so does Boston, so does Chicago, so does Miami, Philadelphia. There's a lot of crime across our country now. I'm not making a political statement, but there's the biggest division I've ever seen politically in our country, and it's seeped down into the citizens. You think sports, you think the Raiders game was a happy place to be in? Think about our political structure right now. It doesn't seem like a very happy place. I Like Ike was
The black hole for sure.
I Like Ike was a long time ago. Those days are gone.
Right. Kate is commenting about why couldn't a tech billionaire such as Mark Zuckerberg offer to buy the team? House prices have soared in Oakland and tech people are coming in. It seems like more money could be beneficial. Is it more about Fisher's refusal to sell? And why do you think he's refusing to sell? You have any comments on that?
I don't know his psyche. That's a great question. I don't know how to answer. My take on it, he's cruel, but he's going to make a lot of money. He has money now, but he hasn't dignified himself as a businessman. He's basically living off daddy's legacy. I hear he hasn't done well in a business capacity. He won't even defend himself in that realm. But by taking the team to Las Vegas, the value of the team will go up higher. It will. And maybe that's the one way he'll feel successful. This is something he did that wasn't daddy's business. And maybe it could save his reputation, which right now isn't very reputable as a businessman.
Sandy just commented, she read an article that said pretty much the same. He wants maximum value for the team, and there's currently a lot of room for that to grow. Have I missed folks' questions or comments? Anybody raise your hand or put another comment in the chat? We've covered a lot here. And I really appreciate the questions, and I appreciate all that Dave has shared with us. There's just so many things going on. So let me ask you this. So if the deal falls through in Las Vegas, what do you think will happen? The A's are selling tickets for next year. We'll be selling tickets for, they've got one more year at the Coliseum, right? I don't think you're going to get support at the Coliseum under Fisher, with Fisher still there.
Every time they have a crowd over 10,000, I'm amazed. I think these fans are so loyal. They're so abused and so loyal that so when the Giants come this coming weekend, that could be a circus. That could, I mean, the passion. Yeah, there'll be a lot of Giant fans. There'll be a big attendance, bigger attendance than what we've witnessed this season. But don't blame the fans. It's not the fans' fault. They've shown their loyalty. And you know what? The Oakland book just came out in April. If I pat myself and Andy on the back, it's
right on time.
It's scheduled for a paperback edition this coming year, Marlene, and your guests. And also there's talk about a movie about Al Davis. I had a temporary meeting with someone who was talking with Hollywood people, and they don't know if it's going to be fiction or nonfiction, but so this book has legs. I just wish the A's situation has legs and they'll be saved for Oakland. And like I told you, Andy is the positive one. I'm somewhat negative because I just think Fisher is so divisive. nothing's going to stop him. But I hope Andy's right.
Well, do you think, should the A's leave, do you think Oakland would be one of the cities considered for an expansion club? Or do you think that bridge is bombed?
There's no hope. Oakland has got soccer teams now, the Roots and kind of thing. And soccer, could take hold. Oakland's first champion ever was back to where the Oakland Clippers in the 60s, when soccer was just taking off in this country. Yeah, they won Oakland's first national championship before the Raiders and the A's and the Warriors. I don't think Oakland, in terms of football, basketball, and baseball, will ever be made whole by the American sports culture. No, once they're gone, they're gone. So the biggest hope is to save the A's. I hope Andy's right.
I hope so. I really hope so too. I really hope so too. It's getting to be 8, and we usually chat for about an hour. So anyone else in the audience, comments, questions? You can speak up at this point. Daryl Brock. Take yourself off mute, Daryl.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you again. I was a member.
Daryl's one of my first favorite baseball authors, you guys.
Thank you. I was a member of the Lefty O'Doul chapter, which this isn't, but
no, this is.
Oh, all right.
Both of us.
Oh, well, good to be back. I wanted to ask Dave, since we like to talk about all-time figures in baseball, is Fisher the worst ever? I've seen Marge Schott up close in Cincinnati, and she was a daily embarrassment and a racist. Judge Fuchs in Boston was supposed to be terrible. Is Fisher the worst?
By the way, Daryl is a great baseball author. He's written several books that are just incredible writing. And you'd have to think about George Steinbrenner. That guy was pretty bad. They banned him from baseball 2 years for his political involvement, Daryl. If we give Fisher time, I think he's in the top. I know he's in the top 5. I don't know if I want to put him in the top 3 just yet, but he has a good chance to ascend. He really does.
Thanks. Other folks got questions. If I'm not seeing your hand, speak up. Bill Johnson. Hi, Bill. Take yourself off mute. You're on mute.
There we go. No, I forgot what it was I was going to ask you about. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. Other folks.
I see Kirk has his hand up.
Thanks.
Yes. Thank you. Marlene, you mentioned the expansion team. When they asked, can Oakland get a minor league team if not expansion team, since Oakland has a history of baseball since the turn of the century?
Yeah.
I would think there's a modicum of possibility there. It has. I'm glad the viewer broached that. I hadn't thought about that. The Pacific Coast League has shifted teams around. And remember the Oakland, the Oakland Oaks back won championships. They had a franchise in 1902. They were here till 1955 when they moved to Vancouver. They had a number of great players and they won championships with Casey Stengel as manager and Billy Martin as second base, Jackie Jensen. That's a possibility. Nobody has really thought about that, but I wonder, the Coliseum is there. I don't think they're going to blow it up.
That was a question that came in. What do you think will happen to the Coliseum?
Well, I saw the hole in the ground that used to be Candlestick Park. That. If you were a fan of San Francisco sports, that would put a hole in your heart. I mean, it looked like a bomb had been dropped. There's been so many talks about turning that Coliseum area into a shopping mecca, like Denver, and I just don't see it happening. It's not in a location that would be conducive to that. I just don't think so. Maybe they'll, if the Roots soccer team becomes successful, yeah, they could play there. But what happens to the arena, which Pavarotti has played at the arena, and I don't know if the Beatles have been there, but they used to have big crowds. But
Marvin
now
Gaye.
San Jose seems to, and the Chase Center have taken away that invitation. It might be that both of those will be blown up. I don't know.
It's interesting, I'm thinking of more than sports teams Oakland has lost.
Well, the stadium, I think the stadium would be too big for the soccer image that they're trying to create with the Roots, the Oakland Roots, and they're talking about building a smaller stadium, like I guess they have where in San Jose. God, the way I look at it, if the A's are gone, then I could see the Coliseum and the arena being razed. RAZED one day. Sad to say.
Kirk mentioned that there's a group that's taken over the arena, and there's talk about trying to get a WNBA team here, which would be interesting.
Well, I think the WNBA, didn't they commit to San Jose?
I don't know.
I think they did.
I have heard chatter
There's-
about them playing a Chase, being a San
There's
Francisco.
there's a soccer team that's committed to San Jose for the NWSL. WNBA has been going on for years. Joe Lacob has been looking for one. There's this the group that I mentioned is a Black-owned sports group. They are working with the arena and trying to get an NBA team, WNBA team there. So that's why
Well, if Joe Lacob is working with it, the WNBA doesn't play during the winter, they could play at the Chase Center. That's a perfect place. That'd be wonderful for Oakland. Maybe Oakland could get a Parcheesi team or something like that. I have no idea what kind of sports image Oakland will have, except
We may not have. There may not
maybe
be
a
any.
ghost. It may be ghostly. It might be ghostly. Sad
Well,
commentary.
Yeah. I want to be mindful of folks' time. I'm happy to sit around and look at your faces and hear you talk baseball for a while. I see a hand. Wait a minute. Where is the hand? Bill, you got a hand up again. Take yourself off mute. You remembered, Bill.
Yeah, I finally remembered. I was wondering what Dave Newhouse thought about the Warriors, who all the time they were in Oakland, I don't recall them ever doing anything with logos or anything, even mentioning Oakland. And now that they're in San Francisco, they've done some kind of promotional stuff talking about their roots in Oakland. And it just seems like very hypocritical to me. I just wondered what Dave's opinion was on that.
You really want to get me mad, don't you? 40 years in Oakland, and they were, I can't even, I'll say it, Golden State. I hate to even use the words Golden State. There's no state capital in Golden State, right? There's no zip code in Golden State. It's a fictitious thing. 40-some years, 48 years in Oakland, they never had Oakland on their jersey. They go to San Francisco, and the first season they come out in Oakland jerseys.
Yep.
I was so irate.
Me too.
Oh God, that is like that is the most disrespectful thing you can do. And I think that shows the character of the Warriors ownership. How could you be so do something so disheartening? It's beyond conception. I don't, it's the cruelest thing never to wear Oakland when they played in Oakland and go to San Francisco and put on Oakland on their jersey. They're just shoving it in our face. And I have no respect for them at all. Does that answer your question? I don't know if I could be more blunt than that.
No, that's pretty much the way I feel about it too. And I like the Warriors, but I thought that was really insulting when they suddenly, acknowledged all those years there in Oakland after they left Oakland. So I agree with everything you said.
You know what's nice about the Warriors is Steph Curry, because, I just don't mean his basketball playing.
He supports Oakland.
He still holds charity events in Oakland, youth-related events in Oakland. Yeah,
brings the kids to the ballpark.
He's the greatest shooter in NBA history, but he must have the biggest heart too. That's very impressive to me. If he wants to run for governor or president, he'll get my vote.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're ready to wrap it up. Sandy's mentioning Steph Curry's organization has raised much more money for Oakland youth than the A's have. Well, I'm kind of not surprised. Dave, I do want to let you know that an old friend of yours is on this Zoom. Maybe she'll come off mute and say hello. Margie, you want to say hello?
Hey, Dave. Great to see you.
Oh, Margie, how are you doing?
Margie's doing very well.
She's been my collaborator on book writing, as is Daryl Brock. He wrote a beautiful foreword for a book I wrote. And Daryl's much more brilliant than I am when it comes to book writing. But Margie, it's good to hear from you. You still living in the United States, or
I'm still in the desert. Mom is 97 and a half years old, as she will tell you, and still doing well. And here I am taking care of her.
And you must be ruining the sports situation in Oakland. I know how you feel about Oakland sports.
Yeah, it's been difficult. I've been here 6 years now, so I feel myself detaching a little more every season. But that's a good philosophy. I think we're all going to have to detach eventually if the A's leave, right? Yeah. It's great to see you. It's wonderful to see you.
Nice talking to you, Margie. And
you too.
Thanks, Margie, for joining us.
Thank you, Marlene.
Daryl, maybe we could have you come to a meeting and talk about your books. We could all go back and reread them. Would you be willing to do that? Have you written anything else recently? I have missed it if you have.
The answer is no to that, and yes, sure, I'd come back.
Yeah, let's. Zach and Steve hold me to this. I've got these ideas. It's putting them down and getting dates for them. So we'll put Daryl on our list. Let me see what was that last comment that came in.
Daryl be a great guest.
Do you think A's fans will follow the team to Vegas, Dave? Or Kate, are you asking me or are you asking Dave? What do you think, Dave?
No, it's not like football. There's too many games to play in baseball. Football, 17 games, whatever they play in the NFL now. Baseball is 162 game season, so 81 games would be on the road. No, I just don't see that happening. I don't think baseball travels like that. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, again, I want to thank you, Dave, for tonight and for all the times that you've spoken to SABR and probably will in the future. I want to thank everybody who's on the call. Andy, when are you going to be in Sacramento?
The 19th, Marlene.
Okay, so that's the Dusty Baker chapter in-person meeting coming up. So we will be in touch. If any of you are interested in getting more involved with either of the chapters or helping to develop a membership lead role, Dusty Baker folks, get in touch with Zach. Lefties, get in touch with me or Steve, and we'll be working on this. I really, I know people are zoomed out, but for me, it's just, it makes such a difference that so many of us from so many different places can get together. Steve's down in the desert is in Tucson now. You know, Margie's in Palm Springs. You know, Andy's in Southern California. It's just, and you know, we're all over the place. So it's just, it's nice that we can get together this way. I know it doesn't touch in person. And me and Steve, we're going to try to do something in person. We're going to try. But in the meantime, thank you for Zooming with us. I can't tell you how much fun it is to see all of you. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and good night. And Dave, you and I are going to be in touch. It's just so good to see you all. Thanks again. And if anybody wants to hang on the call for a minute, we can keep talking.
All right.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Zach, thank you for always putting this together. Oh, and this will get recorded if you want to listen to it again.
All right. See you later. Oh yeah, I'll be on YouTube soon.